Well, hello and welcome everybody. We are back for season 2, 21-22, week 4, race 4. I'm Kate Bates, joined by Dave Towle. Dave, we opened last night with APAC for this team's time trial. We've been through every division now till we land on America West, and it's the first team's time trial of the season. So far, they've just been points races and kind of sprinters galore, but tonight it's a little bit of a different one for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Nathan was talking about this, how you split this season up into two distinct halves with the team time trial kind of right in the middle here. I guess that's really premier because there's 8 races that we've got for our community. So it goes a little bit deeper, but absolutely shifting gears, going from the sprinting, points racing. It was so fun. Those first 3 weeks of racing were phenomenal. Today has been incredible. I heard things started off with the bang, and we have seen some unbelievable battles out here today. Wahoo LaCool, they do it not only in Premier, but they just did it in Community as they upset Riot. It was an incredible race there on the women's side of things. I expect nothing less from this group, Kate. 24.2K, not a lot of vertical gain, to tell you the truth. Power ups in play. So that was something new. What did you think of that?
Yeah, I think everybody's a bit divided on the power ups, Dave. And where we landed on it with APAC is you can either be neutral about it or you can love it. Because if you don't love it and you don't want to use them or you don't get the right ones, you can just ignore it and not try. But I do think in time that some new strategies might evolve around how to use them in teams' time trials. I can say there were a few moments with some power ups perhaps dropped at poor times when only half the team had the correct ones, caused a bit of havoc. But that's kind of the fun in it too, and the importance of having the director there telling them what to do. As you said, it's relatively flat. They do go over the aqueduct KOM though. That can potentially have a bit of an impact in a team's time trial. But the other thing we saw, especially noticeable in APAC, was NZ Bro were one of the teams who did this. They've been sitting kind of fourth or fifth with a few standout riders, but definitely not on the top of the table. And they smashed it in because they do only have one or two riders who can sprint and get those points in the points race, but you put them together and they make this beautiful combination to go really well in this kind of event. So I'm loving that. And I do feel like it's a real transition into what we're going to see in the back half of the season, Dave, which is more for the climbers.
We had a team, Kate, earlier today competing that has a Tour de France veteran, a Stanley Cup, the National Hockey League, a Stanley Cup winner, and a 3-time mountain bike Olympian all racing for them. How's that for a race?
Wow,
A
that's
race group.
cool.
They won. They did win. Yeah,
Yeah.
but that was the Velocio team racing earlier today. I thought that's the kind of thing that would catch people's attention, right? I mean, those are some real bona fides, as they say.
It is, it is. And I think that once an athlete's an athlete, they kind of can't get that competitive nature out of their system all the time. So you give them an opportunity and they will go for it. We will jump down to pictures when we have them and take a look at what's happening out on course. So, Dave, tell me about America East and what was going on over there. Were the teams looking nice and neat and tight and together? Because that was a real standout in APAC, just how beautifully the teams appeared to be working together.
I would say yes, to be honest with you. A lot of this. So it wasn't technically perfect, that single file that you see, in real life with just millimeters separating the riders. A lot more of this, to tell you the truth, semi-blob type racing. And it seems like basically what we did see that really stood out to me, Kate, was the number of teams that finished with 6 riders. You start with 6, time taken off of the 4th. So you don't have to have all 6 at the finish line, but we saw I would say 2/3 of the teams were finishing with the full complement. And I thought that really spoke to the depth that these teams have. They can adjust their teams race by race. You move some pieces around. And obviously, the team time trial, we know who's good at this because Thursdays we do it every single week with WTRL. I believe it's the 146th or 7th week coming up this Thursday. So there we go. Now, the DDCs, the Dutch Diesel team that we're taking a look at, the Zena edition. So it's going to be a team to watch. I actually been curious how they're going to stack up in this time trial, Kate.
Well, they are definitely the team that has stood out the most this season. And in fact, last week, Dave, we were only saying, oh, perhaps it's the week that DDC won't be on top. But in fact, when we looked at the overall board, they'd stacked it so beautifully that they came away with the majority of points. So they did very well from a strategy perspective. Sometimes you think that the strongest riders will always make the strongest team in a team's time trial. And notwithstanding that that's the likely outcome from today, it's also the case sometimes, isn't it, that when you get such strong riders together, it's not that it's an ego fest, but they do need to really temper their efforts and make sure that they're not always pushing that little bit harder, which is what they become accustomed to in normal race season. But I tend to think that DDC have evolved well beyond that.
It's a point you make that's really solid. It's not true here, is my thought. I completely agree with you, though. The concept of a team is not the five strongest individuals put together. It's that group that can work together, and they need to be strong enough. And I think that this team, DDC, does have that entire mix. But point well made, Kate, for sure. When I look at the scoring from so far this season, what I like is this battle for second right now. I mean, it's extremely even out there. Team F3, FBW, they're still in the mix here. If they win this team time trial today, which, I mean, I get it. It's maybe not likely the way things have been going, but you never do know. They could completely upend the table here. So everything's in play, and that's extremely fun to watch. This is Cadence. They've been sitting on 53 points, the second best team so far on the tally, but you can see 52 points is a tie right now from Alto Velo, Tonitas, and West Coast Coalition B. ATP Racing Vespa, the other team to shout out here, sitting on 51 points. I wonder how many they started with out here today. This group, Kate, Racing in America's West, is a little more catch as catch can with trying to find riders and fill out teams and fill out the division. So, Mike, a lot of spirit out here as we join WCC now, West Coast Coalition.
How good do they look when they're all as matching as this team are? Even they've got a lot of the bikes coordinated, and still 6, which is fantastic. Cadence only with 4, so that does make a little bit of a difference, because it means if anybody is struggling, if anybody's having any power issues or anything like that, they do need to be very conscious of waiting for that. We didn't see a lot of holes appearing yesterday in the TTT, and Nathan and I were remarking that the first time in ZRL that we were commentating on the team's time trial, how often we were trying to be quite polite about the teams that were just blowing to pieces with riders everywhere. And it's really impressive how they've all evolved and learnt from that to get to a point. Yeah, where across the board, you're just not seeing that happen anymore. And if it does, you kind of know that something has gone a bit wrong.
That's really interesting, and I hadn't thought about that at all. It is almost rare now. So it used to be if Nathan randomly jumped in with the team, more often than not, they were all over the shop, right? Left, right, and center. One rider off the front, 2 riders off the back, one rider looking for change on the side of the road. I mean, it was just a mess. And
yeah.
Now this is typically, if you just jump in and take a snapshot, this is what you see. Teams have come a long, long way. I got to give Martin and WTRL a lot of credit, Kate, for every single Thursday putting competitive team time trials out there. Folks have really reacted well to that. And I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to be here this Thursday because I'm going down to Austin, Texas to hang out with Ashton Lambie, my new buddy.
Ooh, that's cool.
Yeah. No, I don't mean to brag, but obviously, you know.
No, totally brag.
Yeah,
he's like, I'd love to. He's on my, you know,
he's
who would you love
club.
To randoms to have dinner with, you know?
Kate, we'll talk about you because you're one of my favorite people. So I'll definitely mention. Hey, I already have a world champion friend, Kate.
Yes, tell him I'm a very, very big fan. Yes.
Well, I will. Actually, there's a whole bunch of Zwifters down there that I'm looking forward to seeing. It's called the Mashdown Tour. Garmin Tax put this together, and we're going to Mellow Johnny's, which is Lance Armstrong's bike shop there in Austin, Texas, on Thursday night, and then heading up to Houston because Ashton Lambie's partner is an astronaut. Did we talk about that last week?
We didn't, but I have followed very closely along with that too, and shown my daughters, because we've also got a bit of a family crush on her as well. So there's a lot of love from the Bates household in Australia over their way. It's a pretty cool story, I think.
Very good, very fun. Right. So I'm only kidding about my opportunity, but these are the things in life that keep you going. Kate, cool
It
people
is. It's
for
very
sure.
cool. Very
So
cool.
how about young Nicole
Please carry
here?
on.
Oh, I was just going to say that we're picking up these teams now. Only 24K, and it's relatively flat. So fastest time, Kate, that I've seen is 29:20 today, or that was yesterday in Premier.
Oh, it's so fast. We had around the 30-minute mark in APAC, and some surprise teams actually that stepped up, and some that were perhaps a little bit off form. But we haven't seen so far, and we'll wait till we get some splits through so that we can start comparing. But we certainly haven't seen an indicator in any of these teams that there's any trouble at all. Cadence is probably the only standout, that there's only four of them it looks like only four took the line, which may be fine. It may be for rock solid ladies who are all absolutely feeling it tonight, but I'm always a little bit nervous. I'm not very good with technology. I think we
Oh,
call
I
it
hear you.
here, I'm a bit of a Luddite is what you'd call me in Australia. And so I
That would
get
work
very
here.
nervous at the idea of not having any kind of backup, just in case the technology goes a little bit bananas. But it is always good. Anna talks about some other riders she knows that are very, very tech savvy, and they solve problems a lot together when anything crops up. And Anna's the only person in my life I have that is that tech savvy around the in game, and Nathan, of course. So, if I was out there and stuff started to go down, I think I'd probably freak out. But this team is looking
Nathan
good.
is
There's Whitney Post. We've talked about her quite a lot over the weeks.
she's great, really is. Yeah, Nathan is so far advanced in this, and Anna Russell is one of the most impressive people. I was talking about this the other day about how when she puts her mind to something, she taught herself how to stream and do things that other people couldn't even imagine learning how to do. She's been phenomenal. So taking a look at the balloons in the background, that's the women there, and the AVRT Alto Velo, which is a team. I believe all of the women there are in Northern California. Actually, right now, Whitney Post might be down in maybe even Santa Barbara or even further south than that in California. But either way, it's a team that is definitely California based. Over here, you can see, oh my God, they killed Kenny. Over here, oh boy. I know people are saying, hey, there's a lot of other cool people in the community besides Philippe, and I completely agree, but I really did want to celebrate Philippe Nystrom. I don't know, did you get to see any pictures of him at Worlds? Because there were multiple
I
articles
didn't.
written.
No. How did
The
he go?
Belgian,
Let me know.
well, he ended up last, but that's okay because he's at the World Championships against the best cross racers, and he's not even
Yeah.
per se a cross specialist. Um, but he raced and he was celebrated. The Belgian
That is
press,
unreal.
they all did articles about him. He had a blast, and it was a complete success. That is for sure. So, uh, again, I
I
really,
love
really
that.
love.
I'm going to
I love
search
that.
up some of those articles. And I loved the World Champs, everything about what happened in Arkansas. It looked like just the absolute place to be. And to see some of our Zwift community talent. If I could have been there, I would have had a big sign for him. There were some
Yeah,
great signs, although I also saw a couple of very funny images, Dave, of some people in overalls with kind
hillbilly.
of interesting haircuts, and yeah, it made me laugh a little bit. I thought maybe that was you in your younger days. So let's
No,
take a
it
look
was,
at
but
these
that's
split times before you even can respond to my sledge. um, and
9:09.
yeah, that's it. Hold on though. This is a bit of a show up because DDC are the ones who they didn't go through that first split quickest, and we imagined that they would, given what they've been doing so far this season. So this is a great ride so far by
You,
ATP. Alison Grinnell and Joy Connolly are probably the two that have just consistently been standing out over the seasons, but they are very, very solid all round. Dave, they've got a bit of motivation to really keep cranking this up. They've started very well.
Well, ATP honey powered here, racing vest, but I completely agree. So what we saw, I would have called it a bit of an upset with Wahoo Lacole America's East beating Riot today. And they did it. It was a couple of seconds at this point when we were looking at splits, but they opened that gap up, Kate, to I'm going to say over 20 seconds. This is a head turner. ATP Racing Vespid, that first check, the second one's going to tell us a lot. I drive a diesel, and the old joke used to be, they take a while to warm up, and they don't. But that's not really true anymore. Diesels are extremely responsive, and I'm going to respect Dutch Diesel Cycling and think that they're going to be up to the challenge here because ATP, Kate, they've thrown down the gauntlet. This is really an impressive opening first to the first check from ATP, and not far back is Alto Velo Tunitas as well. So this is going to be an interesting race with West Coast Coalition WCC at 9:30, 9:34 for Cadence and Team F3 at 9:42. But we're going to look for these splits coming in. We will watch for data to refresh here at that 12K check, which is right now. This is the Aqueduct that we're looking at. ATP fastest team as far as we know out on course right now, Kate.
Well, really interesting. So the 12K mark is not far away at all. It's just over the top of this, and we should get that split in for ATP. I'm really interested in how they used their power-ups up there. It was very well done. So it was Stallkamp who accelerated a bit off the front while the other riders appeared to have feather power-ups. They dropped those, but what's really impressive about the way they did it was that they dropped it almost to get a little bit of a break and freshen up a bit and rolled back onto the group. At no point did any gaps open up unnecessarily, and at no point did they use the power up to accelerate. Yeah. They used it more to get a rest, and I think that that's the really crucial bit. And it's quite counter, isn't it, Dave? You're spot on with it's the director. It's counter to what you do in a points race where you're often using the feather to accelerate through the bunch rather than just to take a little bit of a break. So that's where the director, the communication needs to be absolutely spot on when they're experimenting with these new power-ups in game.
That's very observant, Kate. I completely agree. And that's the difference out here between winning today, to tell you the truth. It's going to be just a few scant seconds between the top team on the podium and the second step. And West Coast Coalition is right there, starting to look at, 9 seconds from Dutch Diesel. So they've retaken the lead out here. Excuse me, still waiting for ATP. So that time hasn't come through yet, Kate.
Isn't that interesting? That time hasn't come through. It's like they're teasing us. Come on now, we were waiting for that one.
Building drama. I love it.
I know. I mean, Alto Velo, though, they've done very well. So there was a 4-second gap in the first 6K. That stretched only to 9 seconds. So it's still a fairly consistent pace between those two teams, which by no means would I say is dominant. And also West Coast Coalition B have actually clawed back a few seconds. So they are gaining a bit of speed and consistency as well. This is going to be quite tight. I just want to know the ATP split.
Well, I have a new feature for you. I think it's a revenue stream for €1. We'll tell you. You see, we're gonna.
It's not that lucrative if it's only me.
Right. Well, we got to start €1 at a time. All right, Brittany Keskinen. I love this WCC. Oh, we're in with ATP right now. I do want to shout out WCC because that team is coming on strong. Brittany, Heather, Leanne, Linda, Mallory, and Megan. We'll have a chance to join them again. Oh, thanks, Nathan. This is going to be a team to watch, no doubt. I'm thinking British Columbia, one of the most beautiful places on planet Earth there. I love Vancouver, and this team is, let's see here now, looking at the splits, WCC 1839, so 10 seconds off of Altavelo Tunitas, but still, I mean, this is at 12K. You're halfway through distance-wise, a little bit more than that because most of the vertical that you're going to have to gain has already gone by. It's downhill and flat on the way to the finish line. The speeds will start picking up as WCC now in the mix. These points are critical. 20 points for the win, 19 second, 18 for third. So if you want to make a move on Dutch Diesel, we talked about that. This is your chance, but looks like they've battled back really. ATP, 8 seconds quicker, Kate Bates. They are, and fuego, absolutely on, I don't know how you say on fire in French, but they are. This is great racing.
That is, I was just about to furiously Google that. I'll do that in the next minute. What on fuego is in French.
In French,
this is
right.
impressive. They've consolidated. They took 4 seconds in that first 6K. They've taken another in this next 12, which means that there would have to be quite a big turnaround at this point for DDC, not only to claw that time back, but to even better them. So, when they've taken the race like this, mentally, this is a really good place to be. They know that they just have to hang on and keep solid and keep doing exactly what they have been doing. Absolute kudos to their form. They look beautiful in terms of the order of their riders, the distance between wheels, and the way they've been. We commented over the aqueduct how they've been using those power-ups as well to accelerate their speed even more. I think they've done a sensational job here. And yet another time where we've seen what has to date been a really dominant team challenged in the team's time trial. I'm loving it. I really feel like this is quite a turning point in the season that a lot of teams will feel quite reinvigorated, after perhaps being bettered a few times early on in those flatter points racing stages. They're now kind of fighting back, and I think this opens up the door for a very, very exciting second half of the season. Alison Grinnell, it's great to see her back on such good form, isn't it, Dave? She's just one of the most consistent riders out there. I'd love to see her in real life racing, actually, because I'll have to Google her. I'm not even sure what she looks like on the bike.
ATP Racing S en feu. That's on fire in
Okay,
French.
that's
Sur le feu.
Did you think you were talking with a new commentator? Did you think a French commentator?
Yep. You totally had me.
Yeah. No, it's just me, Dave. Don't worry, Kate. I know you thought that was a French guy. So you're absolutely right.
It's why
Alison
they pay you the
Grinnell.
big bucks.
Yes, absolutely.
Sur le feu.
There you go. I should be learning. Thank you, Nathan. I should be learning French because Zwift doing a great job supporting Tour de France for the women avec Zwift this year. My fingers are crossed, Kate, that we hear you doing some kind of worldwide feed or coverage of that event. Don't mean to pry into your business, but I know you'd be the best choice. So, Alison, you and Hannah Walker. Alison, that's my vote. Another Hannah racing out here. Hannah Stallkamp with ATP. Jasmine Miller, Joy Connolly, Rachel Winchester, Sarah Abernathy, and you mentioned Alison Grinnell. She is a real talent here. Boy, they are really looking good. Wattage blowtorch right now.
Kit. It's a really good kit, isn't it? And they look very consistent. What's interesting, I think, is you've got the riders. I always say that. What's interesting? There's so much that's interesting to me when I'm looking at this. So many different things jumping out. But you do have a group of riders who are often at different levels in Zwift and have access to different bikes. And so it's interesting when you happen to see a team where everybody's really matching because you know that they're all, fairly well leveled out in terms of their Zwift experience. But that is fairly uncommon. So we do have a few different combinations going. A little bit of an advantage to any of the riders who do have access to that aero helmet and the disc wheel. It gives them a little bit more draft to settle in with over this kind of event, but that can also mean they can perhaps do an extra 5 seconds on the front and help their team benefit in that way. On the left, Dave, OMG, gee, haven't they been a team that we've spoken an awful lot about? Dan Pedrosa, there he is. I actually last night in APAC was thinking for a second that Dan was belonging to one of the teams over there because I'd forgotten which time zone I was commentating on. But it's good to see him back out there again. They've been very, very successful with a lot of really quick riders in their squad. So this will be a bit of a change for them, a bit of a different week. But the Jurassic family are out there. I notice only one of them though. So maybe maybe Isaac has been left off the squad for this week with only 6. Bit of family politics maybe.
Yeah, you never know, right? I believe, Kate, you're going to be really jealous. I'm not trying to rub salt in the wound here, but I think I'm going to meet Dan Pedrosa in Austin. He lives there, and hopefully he's going to come out and at worst get some carne asada tacos or something. But I can't wait to run into that Austin crew. There's a big Zwifting scene down there.
Yeah, you
So
get all
Dan,
the fun jobs, Dave. I'm feeling
know,
geographically
lucky
very
me.
isolated now.
I can't tell you how often I wish I was in Australia. No, don't worry. It goes back and forth. Grass is always greener, as they say. Here's some splits coming in, Kate. So you can see that Dirty Rascals Riot were a little bit quicker than both. OMG, they killed Kenny and Izetta. I want to make sure I'm right. And it looks like 7:44 is the quickest. 7:47, 2 teams. Then I see a 7:53 for OTR Hayes. 7:54 for Rascals Rampage from Dirty. 7:56 for On the Rivet Rush. Oh my FG, they fed Cartman. 8:02 and 8:23. I knew that was going to make you laugh. I was waiting for that. So is that the first time you've noticed that one, Kate? Because
last week I noticed it and I was like,
okay.
Oh, curious.
Yep. Well, love it. There's a lot of good senses of humor out in this group. And then TFC Scorpion 8:23. But right now we've already seen, oh my God, they killed Kenny coming through with a 15:33. But Dirty Rascals Riot 15:24. Quickest at check 2, Kate Bates.
This is a really interesting, that's my favourite word today, isn't it? Race. They're looking at about 31 minutes overall, 31 and a half, which is, a decent click along given that we had 29 minutes in Premier League. So this is across the board, some pretty consistent times. Like, look how tight it is in that top 6 especially, but some exact times. That top 3, holy moly. Azeta SDE, there's another team, Dave, that we actually haven't spoken about a lot this season that are absolutely throwing it down in that team's time trial. So now, again, they've already gone through the 12K. So this will update soon and we'll get a whole heap of new splits to see where they're all sitting.
Nathan made a lot of fantastic points today throughout. We do like 6 hours of coverage, as you know, Kate. And one of the things that I'm really noticing from all of these different divisions are when you talk about realism, and team time trialing is as realistic in real life and on Zwift as this might be as close as you can get to replicating an in real life sport in an esports version. I can't imagine how you do any better than this. The only difference really that I can think of, Kate, would be the wind would have an effect on your, the bike handling skills and the ability to echelon correctly and knowing when to change and all of that, right? You don't have to think about that here. But other than that, the efforts, how you time them, how you communicate, right? I mean, it's incredibly similar. If you can do this well together as a group, you should be able to time trial well together. Whether you're a master or World Tour. But if you think about it, Kate, what a tool this would be for a team that was, a World Tour team that didn't have a chance to practice team time trialing too much. Doing this a couple of times, I would think it would really help.
Oh, I am 100% with you, Dave. I think that you cannot get a better team's time trial preparation in terms of strategy and understanding the attributes of your other riders on different courses as you can on here. And in fact, I'd go so far as to say team time trialing in real life in many ways is actually easier because you have the non-verbal cues. You have some other indicators that you don't quite get in games. So if you can nail it in here, I think that you're doing exceptionally
You know
well.
what else
And
you have?
who can forget Zabriskie falling? Can you remember at the Tour when their team's time trial, they binned it together coming into one of the final corners? I think it was when they were
Yeah.
with
Oh,
C to
yeah.
C, if my memory gets me.
It,
And
it was, and
you
he
don't
was in the
have that
yellow
in
jersey.
game.
He
Yes.
beat Lance in the Futuroscope to take the yellow. He beat Lance by 1 second to take the yellow jersey. It was stage 4, and he crashed into the like a roundabout kind of thing, right? And yeah, Dave is a good friend of mine. I'm a big fan of his.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
you like in here, you can concentrate on the other things and the power delivery and the way that the team works together without kind of being held up by that kind of thing and the elements. We're about to have a bit of an overtake here. Cadence is coming up on West Coast Coalition, or the other way
They might not
around.
catch
Perhaps
them.
they just passed
It's-
them.
With only a 1.5K to go, I don't know that they'll make that catch. You're right. I see them right there. But I don't know that that gap is closable.
No, and they're talking a bit, they're communicating around it, which I like. It's actually another thing last season we saw a lot of overtakes, and we were often commenting on kind of the etiquette around being overtaken and what happens there, and kind of figured out what the best rules were and what was expected. But we're not seeing that as much anymore, are we? Because all of the teams have really lifted.
Because we've started. So Martin made a great 2 points there. Martin made a great decision and started the fastest team, it's the teams with the most points start first. So it's much more unlikely that they would get caught. That has made a huge difference here. Also, Kate, get this. I was reading the rule book, and in Premiere now, I'm losing my voice after today. In Premiere now, if a team gets caught, they are now neutralized. They can no longer go past the team that caught them. So once you're caught, the best you can do is stay with the team. You could do worse, but the best you could do is stay with the team that caught you. Very interesting rule change.
I think that's a very good one. It is. Somebody get Dave Towle some chamomile tea with honey, please. His poor voice after the whole day. You're a trooper, Dave. That's a really good rule, because I think that often it becomes this ridiculous cat and mouse where a team gets caught.
Oh, it was absurd.
And then they almost get this spirit back and try and it's just an absolute mess. If you get caught,
it turned into a dog's breakfast. Remember that? Teams passing and then getting repassed.
Did, yeah.
A lot of bad energy. Yeah,
the only fun thing was the comments that were getting thrown out publicly that gave us a bit of a giggle, but that's a little bit selfish of me to have enjoyed. Yes. That part. AVRT, Dave, still with 6, coming up to the finish line here and looking very neat for it too. Another example of how they've evolved pretty well, and we've had some pretty solid results from them in the B category so far this season. So it's good to see them put on a really good performance in this team's time trial as well. And again, pretty quick times. Like, they'll go through shy of 36 minutes for 24K. That's not mucking around.
No. At the end of the day, too, when they're done riding and they step outside, they live in Northern California. That's a win every single day that you're alive. Such a beautiful place to be. This group is, I would say, as far as numbers go, Kate, we don't have big numbers here, but boy, do we have high quality lives being lived amongst these women, and they're just about done here. That's Whitney Post that we're in with now. The final surge to the line. They're going to dim the power grid now here, as this is going to be Alto Velo. Come around this last bend. There's the arch. This one is put paid.
And here come ATP for the finish. They have been on the top of the
Swooping
leaderboard.
in.
It looks
Woo!
very solidly to me like they will take a very convincing win today ahead of DDC, which, I think is something they clearly came out to do today on a bit of a mission. And they're well and truly back in the game. If we thought it was the DDC show until this point in the season, we've just seen a fantastic turnaround.
Story of the day.
And to finish so solidly with 5 riders, this is a really great moment in the season. I think we'll look back over the next couple of weeks at how they did that.
Kate, we saw Next get upset in Premier Men's League by Saris. That was huge. We saw today Wahoo Lacole upset Riot. This has been the day of the upset out here. Team Time Trial Day. It's moving day on the leaderboard. This is going to be West Coast Coalition riders who have finished. Actually, it looks like most of our riders have finished. Just the last team out there. We'll get updates.
I love the difference between when they're riding versus when they cross the line, Dave. It's like you can imagine that they're like just hunched over their bikes, trying to get every little
gasping,
piece of oxygen.
A lot of toweling down.
Exactly. Yes, a
sometimes
lot of
they get on their phone.
Going on.
A lot of times they'll have a last message to send out, like, I love you guys, or, team first.
Yes. Before they fall on the floor and
collapse. Yes. In case I die, I want you to know I love you.
Yeah. I think it's post Zwift efforts that I always notice if there's any spider webs on the ceiling or anything like that I haven't noticed. It's legitimately the only time I look at the ceiling of my Zwift room is when I've attempted something brave on Zwift that my body perhaps wasn't in sync with my mind around, and you do notice that. And this is exactly the point, Dave, of the ride that these guys are in with only 4K left to go. This is where you literally throw the whole kitchen sink at it. And there just should be nothing left in the tank in these final couple of kilometers. You're not doing it properly if you're feeling okay and comfortable. You've got to be pushing so hard that you think, I can't make it.
2 of the riders on your team should be starting to have tunnel vision at this point. If you're doing it perfectly. No one will die, but they will be very close to it as they come across the line, as your body is starting to shut down major organs to survive because you've made an effort that is so supreme. Your body is then saying, like, we're going to shut down the gallbladder. We don't need the gallbladder. We're just going to try to keep the heart running now. All energy to the heart and lungs.
The gallbladder's redundant.
Yeah.
I did have a German coach once who used to say that
Give
to
up
me.
a kidney.
She said,
give up a kidney.
She would say time trialing never killed anyone. And I in my mind was like, until me. Like, I'll be the first, honestly. But it's a good reminder that it's yeah. I was like, oh, well, at least I guess I'll be famous for something. If I'm the first to go.
That would be a good T-shirt.
Death
you
by
only
time
think
trial.
You're dying. You only think you're dying.
Yes.
Right.
Well, apologies to all the guys out there who right now are listening to us going like, screw you guys. You don't know how we're feeling. Well, we do. It's just that sitting in this comfortable chair, we're allowed to have a bit of a laugh about it. Speaking of which, Northway at 188 beats per minute is certainly absolutely pushing it. And the average cadence in this last couple of kilometres, Dave, is always significantly lower than at the start, where they are just trying to get every watt they possibly can into those cranks.
Is that because your legs are heavy with lactic? I mean, you just can't turn them over anymore? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, and I think neurally you get a little bit fatigued. So you often, that's when your form becomes a bit sloppy. You see riders using a lot more of their body all over their bike to
crazy?
Just kind of will it. Yeah, and it quite often
see a rider,
looks
Kate,
quite messy, but...
Well, when you're on the track and you see a rider who can't get on top of a gear like they normally would, and the bike starts throwing them around, that's a really good example of, one, how much technique goes into riding on the velodrome. They make it look much easier than it is, and when you lose the plot, it is ugly. I'm not going to name
Yeah,
any
yeah, yeah.
names
When
'cause
you're throwing your
we're not in.
body, when you're throwing your body weight
It
around,
looks like it's plucking
to
you
try
like
and
a
get it.
horse trying to throw you off.
It
Yeah.
does. Yes. Well, I reckon that, see, Zwift is beautiful how it m keeps your avatar looking still and composed. I would actually have a bit of a giggle if the avatar started moving a little bit messier, as though, actual riders do. I think that we could then, that could bring in like the body language part of it, where you could
And how about
see
this
a
too?
little bit
Your
more how
bike.
people are going.
So you start getting a little more rugged. The shoulders start rocking as you get past 60 miles, and so. And then how about this? Your bike starts like degrading, like you get a flat tire, or um,
You're a
things
sicko,
happen.
Dave. I like that. There's somebody
Uh,
furiously scribbling down these notes, going, "That's a great idea." I
they
reckon On
do
the
it
Rivet
in other
Haze are
video.
probably in a bit of a haze at the moment, listening to your suggestion, they're probably thinking, "Dear God, may our bikes stay compact
We
underneath
stay
us until we
together.
get to the
Yes.
finish."
I don't
Yes.
need my tire unraveling underneath me here. Let's take a look at the times from that split at 22:54 for Dirty. They're on a great day, Kate, the Dirty Rascals Riot. As a matter of fact, they're on a command performance. That's going to be them finishing there. So we'll see what that time looks like. But they had, a 17-second advantage coming into the last 6K. That's a nice buffer. And they didn't look like they faltered.
Mm. It would be very hard to have that beaten by OMG. I mean, they might, even if
It
they
would be,
slowed
yeah.
a bit and OMG increased, significantly, I very much doubt that they would be able to claw back that kind of gap in just a 6 kilometer
So
time. They've
Kate,
done a
right.
really good job. Again, I love how they've thrown down some power ups, Dave, but used them again more as recovery and to keep it together, rather than the rider on the front throwing it down and adding some speed and perhaps disadvantaging some riders. So I think that they've worked pretty well strategically with the use of the power ups this week.
Kate, I know you were world champion in points race. In my limited time watching that, it happens so fast, and keeping track of the points that you have and your competitors, and knowing double sprints and all of that. It's cool that we do have double points coming up later in this series. But one thing I did want to question here was, so if you do, how good are you at cycling math, right? Because if you think about it, if you've got 6K and your team is going 50 kilometers per hour, what do you need to be doing? How much faster do you need to be going to be able to make up 15 seconds, right? And it's a lot. It's like 5K per
Yeah,
hour, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's
That's exactly right. Yeah,
so when you
and
think about that, all of
it's
a sudden,
it, what I was going to say, David, is what I find really interesting about that is a lot of the riders are, as they're riding, they're calculating in their heads. They've got a time in mind that they want to do, what their average needs to be, and if they're above it or below it, they can kind of calculate where they need to sit for the rest of the ride. Like, there is all these calculations constantly going on in the riders' heads and on their screens and with the DS. So the mental game comes into play too, because they know that it's not even a case of can we hold 55k an hour for 6k, for example. It's that the others have to not do that. And you can't control
100%.
what the others do. And so, mentally, that's not a
So
really
you
great
take,
place to be in.
and when you're a director and you're looking at this stuff, you sort of take a rough estimate, and then you can either go conservative or say, if they're on an incredible day, this is the best I could ever imagine he or she doing. And this is what I think they probably would do, and then this is what a crap day would be for them. And so you really do. I mean, you really do understand that it's a very fine line between the differences amongst these riders out here. And the proof is in the
And it's
pudding when you
also,
get down to it.
yeah, it is. You're right. And you watch things like the Tour de France, which, it's probably the one example of what everybody watches at some point in their cycling journey, and you get used to big gaps coming down very quickly from a chasing peloton. And sometimes that's your default mentally. You think, oh, a second a kilometer
Huge
or 10
swings.
seconds a
Right.
kilometer
Yes.
is easy. And it's only when you realize that you don't have a Tour de France peloton with you, and the gaps are actually a lot bigger than what you kind of get used to seeing them look like on television, that you have to start considering the strategy in the specific context of what you're doing, rather than everything you've learned from watching and educating yourself around cycling in that way.
Note to self: I'm going to keep a Tour de France peloton around me all the time.
Yes.
I'll be
Yeah,
flying.
hire a peloton.
Yeah,
It's like hire a hubby.
peloton
I don't
for
know if you
hire.
have that in
Yeah,
the
right.
US. Yeah.
No, but I get the concept. I'm sure we have some version of hire a hubby out here.
Yeah.
That's funny. You Australians are the
Yes.
best
Get
with
the
the
handiwork
names.
done.
Right.
Yes, well, the best, that's
Um,
one way you could describe it. Nathan and I had some good pronunciation lessons last night, Dave, because he jumped in on APAC because Anna Russell was unwell, and I got to teach him a little bit of
French.
Aussie slang, and I thought of you because I thought, where's Dave Towle to hear all my lessons about this?
Well, again, thank goodness we have a lot of racing to look forward to, Kate, because I love it. Truly do. It's my favorite hour of the week, getting to hang out with you. These riders, though, it's almost over here. We're going to start putting a bow on this one and wrap it up and call it race 4 of season 2 of the 2021-22 season. Dave Towle here with Kate Bates. As we say thank you for joining us the last few meters here for TFC, the Friday Criterium, a legendary squad. This is going to be oh my FG. They ate Cartman. Is that they fed Cartman?
They fed.
They look
I'm
good.
glad they didn't eat him. Yeah.
No.
They do look good.
Anything's
All of the
possible.
OMGs or OMFG teams are coming along really well this season, actually. We've gotten very used to OMG. They killed Kenny being quite a dominant force. It looks like they will have to settle for third today, though. Zeta is certainly the ones, these riders now that we're looking at, who have kind of stepped up. Boniface, of course, he's looking great. Again, we have seen him absolutely on fire in the points races, but it's also awesome to see the rest of his team really stepping up today and supporting him as they come into the finish. And it looks like it will be tight at the end with OMG. There was only 2 seconds in it at the 18K mark. So that is a gap that can come down quite quickly. So let's see how they finish this off and whether they can, in fact, take that second place. But a great ride from them.
Yeah, Matt Osborne, the Canadian there on loan, guest riding. It's super cool to see, and he made a difference out there at the SDE. Let's see how close they were able to get that, as it looks like they had a real surge for the finish in with Coalition now at 1K to go. Been quite a day.
This is the hairy part of the race, the 1K to go, isn't it? This is where, if you said before two of the riders should have tunnel vision with 5K to go, I think with 1K to go, everybody should have tunnel vision at this point. There should be no ability to type a message on Discord if they're going hard enough.
Right. I was saying too, Kate, there's a real sense of satisfaction for riders who so much trepidation and fear coming into this event. If I have heavy legs, a bad day, how it's just you're really exposed. I think maybe the team time trial and team pursuit at the velodrome is maybe the most vulnerable that you could feel as a cyclist, even worse than a sprinter on a climbing day, because you know you're going to get dropped. Right? It's inevitable. No one's surprised. You get in the gruppetto and get on with your life. It's not embarrassing. It is what it is. But in a day like today, getting dropped by your team, it really hurts. It's emotional pain that you feel. And so getting to 1K to go.
Yeah, you're spot on. Yeah.
1K to go, you know that you made it, right? Isn't that a sense of sweet relief, I would think, for the riders on that razor's edge, at least?
It is. It really is. And you come within the last couple of kilometers and you know that you can probably hang on to it and throw everything out there without that sheer terror of what a
Right.
team storm trial brings.
Kind of
And
frees you
also,
up.
exactly. And if they do blow up, there's still going to be those 4 riders to cross the finish line. So, I think that it is quite a nice part
And you
of a team's time trial. These guys look a bit cool, Dave. Check out their
sure
kits,
do.
even the no helmet and the facial hair.
Sleeves.
They've like put a little bit of thought into this.
They kind of look like they're coming to like rob a bank or something. Like a mob. Tough
Yes.
guys.
Yeah, they do. Now that you
Yes.
say that, yeah, you're right. It's like
The
Ocean's
Italian
11 or
job.
something by
Yes,
Zwift. The
Ocean's
Italian
11.
job.
Perfect.
That's what it is.
Boy, there's
Well,
no
there
doubt
haven't
that we
been a
get
lot of
to.
big gaps today, Dave, because I want to see what happens in the points at the end here because everything was so tight at the beginning of the day. And look at how close those splits have been all day between Azeta and OMG. They killed Kenny. No second gap, 2-second gap, another 2-second gap. How can they
Wow.
finish it off? That is absolutely to the line. And as we
And
go further down, there's just such
OTR was
small
only.
gaps between each team.
Yeah, OTR was not that far back. I mean, like they're only 8 seconds behind Izetta SDE. This is incredibly competitive. These points so valuable when you look at the season. And there's another table that we transferred to. So we'll look at the results for the teams out here, taking off the 4th rider's time, and then move that into the 20-point table, 20 for the win, 19 for second. And this is the 4th race of the season. Abscape Finesse
Even
presented by Wolf.
when there's not, even when they may not catapult themselves too far up that overall board, there is certainly a lot of honour that goes into winning stage, winning a week, or getting a great result. Even a lot of camaraderie as a team, isn't it?
Wouldn't you say, too, Kate, there's only one way to race this, and that's flat out? There is no half-assing
Yes. No, there is no half-assing this at all. And this is the first, we saw a lot of teams turning up last week for the weekly WTRL time trial in order to get ready for this week. That has paid off because a lot of these teams are just looking very, very neat out on course. Shout out to Marshall from Coalition, who's got to make his way to the finish on his own. And isn't there quite a noticeable difference when a rider has essentially done their job and all they need to do is get to the finish, but their 4 have crossed the line. And you do see, we saw that with Marshall, you do see them sort of sitting up and being able to finish with a bit of dignity after they know they've contributed to the team effort.
Yeah, I completely agree. As a matter of fact, a lot of times in real life at the finish line, those riders that did their job and played a role, it's incredibly cool to see them when they hear that their teammates won or what because, when you're out there, you lose radio communication pretty quickly. And oftentimes you won't know until you hear the live PA. When you're coming near the finish line, you'll start hearing dribs and drabs of what might have happened. And it's always a very unique way to learn what the result was, that's for sure. Well, Royal City finishing up. Half a K to go.
Half a K to go. Still all together, looking good. Another really great example of how the teams have really brought it this week. And they're still putting out really solid power. To be at this point in the race and still heading toward that 400 watt mark to finish it off. Like, we've got some pretty impressive athletes in this category, don't you? And considering that this is the last of the week, I mean, there's so many impressive talents in the Zwift community at the moment.
You have to think that Zwift has made the world a fitter place. I mean, there's no doubt that I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of people regularly Zwift, but you can just feel the level has gone up significantly in esports racing. It's a very different kind of athlete. It's not just a road cyclist or mountain bike racer. Esports is a specific type of cyclist. I still 100% believe it's a cyclist, and everything that happens inside really transfers quite nicely onto the outside in real life road. But you can't there's something special about, I guess it's an ability to dig a little deeper, maybe, is what esports athletes do.
It is.
I don't
It's
know.
one for
Yeah.
all of the data nerds out there, I think. There's so much, there's a lot for a
I
lot of
nerd
people.
factor, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But there's a
Yeah.
lot, there's a lot to get excited about and feel like you're progressing on, because there's so many different things that you can watch. It's not purely about, I think the level of satisfaction can be really, really
You
high,
can really
even if
keep
the
score.
result
That's a great point. You can
isn't where
really
you want it
monitor
to
how you're
be.
doing. Yeah. It's like your
Yeah.
weight. You can watch that. Well, there's very few things in life that you can control, I guess. And certainly, your Zwifting is one of those things that you can watch your progress as you get faster and the longer rides become more doable. And this is always, you don't dig much deeper than you do in a team time trial because all the other riders are reliant upon you. And that's part of what makes it so special here is you got to be a reliable teammate. I think we're pretty much finishing up things here.
Yeah, I think we've seen, a lot of teams have turned up today and with full squads as well. And it's always so encouraging, isn't it, to see so many people turning up week in and week out. As we discussed, we've kind of touched on it all night, Dave, is there's a really consistent change across the board, this week being a transition week, to work into what we're looking at in the next couple of weeks. So next week, they're heading to temples and towers at the Mercury Islands. So they've got quite a lot of KOMs there. So that's a bit of a change up from the sprints that we have been seeing. Now, there is not supposed to be a ghost next week in Temple and Towers, but just quietly, I'm hoping that somehow the ghost turns up, because it's my absolute favourite power-up in that kind of racing. Yeah, I'm hoping for a ghost glitch, which should be a little bit of fun. But it will be, with some renewed energy from some of these teams who've just cranked it up a notch in this team time trial, and it's almost starting the second half of the season like it's a new season again. So they've done a really good job of designing this season to be so defined in the parts. We might also see a few new riders step in who are more climbers than they are sprinters.
Well, all right. It's been a great day of racing out in France, just Douce, France, and 24 kilometers of team time trialing has been, it's been unbelievably close racing. A lot of upsets out here. So it's what it's all about. ZRL, Kate, I'll throw it back to you. So let's take a look at some results.
Let's take a look. I love a good upset. All right, let's take a look at these women. ATP Racing Vespid. Maybe not a huge upset, Dave, because we know that they are so capable. That will pop back up in a second. But they did take the win 14 seconds ahead of DDC. So really solid day for them with a 3.41 watts per kg average. Very impressive. DDC in second. Alto Velo Tunitas. Also a really great ride from them. Not too far back, only 25 seconds at 30 seconds, West Coast Coalition. I reckon actually that's the best we've seen them this season for West Coast. So that should give them a little bit of encouragement coming into the second half. Team F3, FBW sitting in fifth, and Cadence rounding out that top six, but they did only have 4 riders out there. So a little bit tougher because they absolutely had to stay together. Let's look at the C's, Dave. I'll throw this back to you.
Yeah, WCC, Kate, they made the most power, watts per kilo. So when they get their technique figured out, they'll be top of the table. They got a lot. That's what you call room to grow, right? I love it. I absolutely love it. Dutch Diesel Cycling, Atomic Kittens in our C's. Well, they're going to end up with a 36.54. It's only one, let's see. It's going to be 1 second quicker here. Oh, excuse me, 1 minute, 43 seconds quicker than
1
Revo
minute, yeah.
Musketeers.
That's a solid win,
2:25.
isn't it?
Sure is. 2:25. And that's normal for the C's, though, isn't it? There are a little bit larger gaps in between the teams. So Revo Musketeers in for second. Third is Herd of Misfit Meerkats. Fourth, going to Coalition Synthesis, Herd of Mischievous Meerkats in fifth, West Coast Coalition C1 for sixth. Then you've got the Fearlets for seventh, West Coast Coalition C2 eighth, and Heroic rounding out our top 9 for the C's here in Division 1 America's West.
All right. Well, they were some pretty impressive results there. DDC, I reckon they'll have 2 teams in B next season. Watch this space. In the A's for the fellas, Dirty Rascals Riot pulling off a great ride. Again, 14-second gap, just like in the women. Isn't that interesting? OMG, they killed Kenny in second, 14 seconds back. Zeta, oh, look at that. They just pipped them. So they made up nearly 4 seconds in that last 6K. Great comeback from them, but huge ride from the Zeta squad and captained by Mr. Boniface. Very impressive from them. On the Rivet Hayes coming in fourth. AF Troposphere in fifth. On the Rivet Rush coming in sixth. I can't believe so many, the top 8 are within a minute. OMFG, they fed Cartman in seventh and only 44 seconds back, with Dirty Rascals Rampage in eighth, only 51 seconds back. This is the closest division across any that I've seen. So I'm interested. I'll look up some of the other ones to see if we have such a tight race anywhere. Coalition Anarchy, they were in ninth, a minute 21 back. On the Rivet Blaze, and Team F3AW rounding out that 10th and 11th spot for the men's A's. So let's take a look over at the B's. And Dave, I understand from Martin from WTRL, there's 1,975 different teams racing in this week and 10,876 riders. So we've been talking about just how many people have turned up. That is mind-blowing, phenomenal, and huge kudos to everybody. So I'll hand this over to you.
Thanks, Kate. On the Rivet, TWSS for the win here in men's Bs, men's mixed Bs. It's going to be Dirty Rascals Bing Bong for second, Red Peloton B for third, Dr. Wilbar fourth, Dirty Rascals Believers in fifth, GSZ Z Killer Bees in sixth, CryoGen Mount Diablo seventh, TFC Pickle Juice in eighth, KRTB, the Big Timbers in ninth, Herd of Griffins in 10th, and Dirty Rascals Grit. That's your top 11 Bs in mixed men's out here in the West.
All right, we've got the Dirty Rascals Affogato taking the win in the C's. OTR Force coming in second. Zed's Sunspot, they are coming in third. A sunspot is not normally a good thing. Go get your skin checked if you've got any of those. We have also got BPCC Badges of Honour in fourth. ATP Racing Ethel
Your health
in
tip.
fifth. Again, all of them within a minute. Yeah, that's my hot tip for the day. Dirty Rascals Grind in sixth. Red Peloton C in seventh. CryoGen Mount Evans in eighth. TZP Chausseur EST, they are in ninth. NZ Bro Elrond. Great to see NZ Bro popping up over here in America West. We normally see them in APAC, so great to have them over here.
And finally, let's take a look at our men's mixed Ds with ZCD Destroyers. Well, they didn't put out a lot of power, but they were flying. 40-18 for the win. NZ Pro Sauron. I noticed that data will come through in a moment here. NZ Pro Sauron in second. In third, it's Herd of Powerful Pronghorns. Fourth, Dirty Rascals Diaper Changers. In fifth is CryoGen Denali. In sixth is Penn Velo here for our men's D. So a great day of racing, Kate. Always a pleasure. As I want to thank Nathan Guerra as well for all his producing skills. It's been an incredibly long day of team time trial.
It has an incredibly long day, but for many, a very successful day. And for our 1,975 teams, amazing. Great job. Dave, you need that cup of chamomile tea with the honey, and you probably need some sleep after such a massive day. Big kudos to everybody involved in the production. Nathan and Martin, thank you for another great week. We will be back next week. We'll kick off with Premier League, of course, but then for the community, we start with APAC. It's the end of the day, I'm saying things in like an American accent or something, Dave. And we will be back for that at Makuri Islands for the first kind of climbing stage for that. So everybody get your climbing boots ready, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.